Ever wondered how our ancestors approached mental health? It's a journey that takes us back to the early asylums, the birthplaces of modern psychiatry. These were far from the places of healing we associate with the term today. Instead, they were institutions of confinement where those struggling with mental health issues were often subjected to terrifying conditions. Imagine a world where understanding of mental health was minimal, where mental illness was seen not as a condition to be treated, but as a manifestation of moral failing or spiritual corruption. This lack of understanding led to treatments that were, in many ways, more brutal than the conditions they were meant to alleviate. In these early asylums, therapies were not based on scientific understanding, but on misguided beliefs. Patients were subjected to treatments like bloodletting, purging, and even physical restraints. These methods did little to help those suffering, and in many cases they only exacerbated their conditions. However, over time, perceptions began to shift. The dawn of mental health care saw a gradual movement away from these brutal treatments. Society began to view mental illness not as a spiritual or moral issue, but as a medical one. This shift was monumental, marking the first steps towards the development of more compassionate and effective treatments. But this change didn't come easily. It was the result of tireless efforts by advocates and reformers, who fought against societal stigma and ignorance to bring about this new understanding. They recognized that mental illness was not a character flaw or a divine punishment, but a health condition that required care and treatment. As we look back on this era, it's easy to be horrified by the conditions in those early asylums. But it's important to remember that they were a product of their time, born out of a lack of understanding rather than malice. And while we've come a long way since then, it's a stark reminder of how far we still have to go. As grim as history might be, it paved the way for progress. These early asylums, for all their faults, were the catalysts for change, sparking a revolution in how we understand and treat mental illness. And that's a journey that's still ongoing, with each new breakthrough bringing us one step closer to a world where mental health is understood, accepted, and treated with the compassion it deserves. Enter the Age of Asylums, institutions that were supposed to be safe havens. As we journey back to the 18th and 19th centuries, we find ourselves amidst the rise of asylums, a period that would forever mark the history of mental health treatment. These asylums were initially envisioned as places of refuge, where individuals with mental health conditions could find sanctuary, away from the harsh judgment and societal stigma. The intent behind these institutions was noble, aiming to provide care and compassion to those who needed it most. However, as the years rolled on, the asylum system began to crumble under its own weight. A surge in patient numbers led these institutions to become overcrowded, with facilities unable to cope with the rising demand. This influx of patients, combined with a lack of adequate funding, resulted in living conditions within these asylums deteriorating rapidly. With the asylums teetering on the brink of chaos, the care and compassion that was once their cornerstone was replaced with neglect and inhumanity. The lack of effective treatments was a glaring issue. Primitive and often harmful practices were employed in an attempt to control and manage patients. Straitjackets, isolation, and other forms of physical restraint were commonplace, creating an environment of fear and abuse. The dismal reality was that these asylums, once envisioned as safe havens, had become houses of horror. The rampant abuse within these institutions was a dark stain on the history of mental health treatment. However, it's important to remember that this era was also a time of limited understanding and knowledge about mental health. The misguided practices were not born out of malice, but of ignorance and desperation. Asylums were a bleak chapter, but change was on the horizon. This era of asylums served as a stark reminder of the dire need for change in how society perceived and treated mental health. It set the stage for a revolution in mental health care. A revolution that would bring us closer to the understanding, compassion, and effective treatments that we strive for today. The turn of the century ushered in a new era for mental health. Enter the realm of psychoanalysis, a groundbreaking approach to mental health conceived by none other than the legendary Sigmund Freud. Freud, the Austrian neurologist and the father of psychoanalysis, sought to delve deep into the human mind. He believed that understanding our innermost thoughts and desires, many of which lurk in the subconscious, could help address mental distress. His ideas, radical at the time, brought a new perspective to mental health, shifting the focus from solely physical symptoms to the intricacies of the human psyche. But the turn of the century wasn't just about new theories, it was also a period of major advances in treatment. The mid-20th century saw the introduction of the first antipsychotic drugs, These medications were a game changer, offering a completely new way to manage symptoms of serious mental health conditions. Although still there are miles ahead to get to satisfactory treatments, for the first time in history, individuals grappling with these disorders had a chance at a life beyond institutional walls. And speaking of walls, let's talk about the deinstitutionalization movement. As the century progressed, the focus shifted from large-scale mental institutions to community-based care. The idea was simple but profound. Instead of isolating individuals with mental health issues, why not integrate them into society and provide care in a more familiar, less intimidating environment? This shift in approach helped to humanize mental health care, promoting empathy and understanding over fear and stigma. As we navigated the twists and turns of the century, we witnessed a dramatic transformation in the world of mental health. From Freud's pioneering theories to the advent of antipsychotic drugs, from the dark halls of asylums to the welcoming embrace of community care, we started dismantling old prejudices and building new paradigms. The seeds of modern mental health care were sown, and as these seeds took root, they promised a future where mental health wasn't shrouded in mystery and fear, but approached with compassion, understanding, and the promise of healing. Fast forward to the present day, a time of great strides and breakthroughs. We now stand on the shoulders of the pioneers who came before us, their tireless efforts paving the way for a deeper understanding of the human mind. Today, our perspective of mental health has shifted dramatically. We no longer view mental health disorders as a sign of weakness or moral failing, but as complex conditions that interweave biology, psychology, and environmental factors. From depression to schizophrenia, bipolar disorder to PTSD, we are beginning to unravel the intricate tapestry that makes up our mental health. The range of treatments available today is vast and varied. Therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalysis, and dialectical behavior therapy offer a lifeline to those struggling. Medications too have been revolutionary, with antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and antipsychotics providing much-needed relief for many. But it's not just about treating symptoms. We now understand the critical importance of early detection and intervention. Like with many physical ailments, catching a mental health disorder early can drastically change the course of the condition, transforming lives in the process. What's more, we're delving into the genetic and environmental factors that contribute to mental illness. We now know that our genes can make us more susceptible to certain disorders. But it's not just about the genes we're born with. Environmental factors, from the stress of life events to the impact of our diet and physical health, can all play a part. And so, the research continues. Scientists across the globe are unearthing new findings every day, from identifying risk genes to understanding how our brain activity is linked to our mental health. We're even exploring how cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence and virtual reality can be harnessed in the quest to better understand and treat mental health disorders. The journey isn't over yet, but the progress is undeniable. We've come a long way from the asylums of old, but there's still much to discover. As we continue to push the boundaries of our understanding, we're not just making strides in science, we're changing lives, one breakthrough at a time. So, what does the future hold for mental health care? As we stand on the precipice of tomorrow, we see a vista of possibilities unfurling before us. One of the most promising advancements on the horizon is personalized medicine. It's a tantalizing concept, isn't it? Imagine a world where treatment is tailored to the individual, taking into account their unique genetic makeup, lifestyle, and environment. No more trial and error, no more one-size-fits-all. Instead, we'll have targeted therapies designed to work with our bodies, not against them. And with our understanding of genetics and neuroscience growing every day, this future is closer than you might think. And then, there's artificial intelligence. We're already seeing AI-assisted therapy making waves. Algorithms that can analyze speech patterns and facial expressions to detect signs of mental distress. Apps that can provide cognitive behavioral therapy at the tap of a screen. And while nothing can replace the human touch, these tools can supplement traditional therapy, making mental health care more accessible than ever before. Of course, technology is only part of the equation. As we move forward, we must also strive to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health. We need to foster an environment where people feel comfortable seeking help, where mental health is seen not as a personal failing but as a part of our overall well-being. Furthermore, we must work to improve access to care. Because mental health care shouldn't be a luxury, it should be a right. And in the future we envision, it will be. From Bedlam to breakthroughs, we've come a long way, but the journey continues. As we look to the future, we're filled with hope. Hope for a world where mental health care is personalized, accessible, and free of stigma. A world where everyone has the support they need to thrive, and together we can make that world a reality.